Son's daughter, may peace be with you. I am here. Breathe with me for a moment. I want you to imagine yourself sitting before me as I remember one of the deepest, most defining nights I lived alongside my disciples, the night I walked on the waters. That afternoon had been long. I had just finished multiplying loaves and fish, and many people were amazed. But although everyone saw the miracle, few perceived the purpose: to teach that when the heart trusts, even the impossible becomes a path. Knowing that, I asked my disciples to get into the boat and go to the other side of the sea. They obeyed, even without fully understanding. They obeyed because, despite their doubts, they trusted me. And you, son, daughter, how many times do you also obey without understanding everything? How many times do you keep going with a trembling heart, unsure of what tomorrow will be like? I see that, and I never despise your silent courage. When the boat sailed away, I went up the mountain to pray. I looked toward the sea as I spoke with the Father. Night began to fall, the wind began to rise, and I knew what was about to happen. My disciples wouldn't perceive it right away, but that crossing would become one of the moments that would forever mark their faith. As I prayed, my heart was with them. I knew exactly where the boat was. I knew how hard the wind would make them struggle. I knew fear would try to take control. And doesn't that remind you of your own life? You also face nights like these, moments when news feels like waves hitting again and again, responsibilities blow like opposing winds, and loneliness tries to tell you that you're rowing alone. But just as on that night, I see every movement, every silent tear, every effort you make to keep going. The wind grew strong, the waves began to strike the boat, and they grew tired. The distance between where they were and where they wanted to be seemed to grow. And maybe that's how you feel today. The more you try, the more the goal seems to drift away. You look toward the future and see no clarity. You look at yourself and see no strength left. But son, daughter, that night, while they thought they were drifting helplessly, I was watching every detail. I had not lost sight of the boat, not for a second. While I prayed, the Father spoke to my heart, reminding me of the mission, the compassion, the care for every person who would one day follow me. And there, as the wind blew, I decided to go to them. Not because I was desperate or in a hurry, but because I knew that presence would be the answer to fear. Just as today, my presence remains the answer to your anxiety, your loneliness, your feeling of being lost in a sea of obligations, problems, and uncertainties. Son, daughter, even before taking my first step on the waters that night, I was already moving toward them in my heart. And that is what I do with you every day. Many times you feel that I delay, but I never arrive late. I move at the right time, in the right way, to reach you exactly at the moment when fear is about to overwhelm you. And then finally, I stood up. The sea was rough, but beneath my feet there was peace. I walked. The wind didn't stop me. The waves didn't intimidate me. The impossible became a path. And as I advanced, my thought was simple. I am coming to you. Yes, I went to them. And today I come to you, even when you don't realize it, even when you think you are too far, too tired, too confused. Before you call to me, I am already on my way. Tonight, before you sleep, turn off your phone for a few minutes and say only this: Jesus, this is my dark night. Walk toward me. You don't need to explain everything. Just give me the name of your storm. I will be there. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. I want you to continue walking with me through that night. After my disciples set out and the wind began blowing harder, the sea took on a different tone. The waves rose with force, and the boat carrying those I loved seemed too small before the vast darkness surrounding it. They rowed. They rowed with all their strength. And the more they tried to move forward, the more the wind pushed them back. You know that feeling well, don't you? That impression of doing everything right, putting in the effort, trying to be better, trying to stay calm, yet still feeling like someone who never gets anywhere.
In that boat, each disciple was facing something inside themselves. Some were afraid of losing control. Others remembered moments when I had already helped them, but still doubted I would show up again at that moment. The sea brings to the surface what is hidden inside the heart, and the same happens in your life. Contrary winds expose what you try to hide even from yourself. Insecurity, fear of disappointing others, the feeling of not being enough, the fear of being too alone on this journey. But son, daughter, while they struggled against the wind, I watched them. From the top of the mountain where I prayed, I saw the boat being shaken. I saw their effort. I saw their worries grow. Nothing went unnoticed before my eyes. And I tell you this so you understand something essential. I also see every one of your efforts. You may think you're rowing alone, but I never step away from what you live. The sea was big, but my eyes were bigger than the sea. And even from a distance I knew exactly how heavy each wave was upon the boat, just as I know the exact weight each concern places upon your heart. When you feel emotionally exhausted, when it seems the world demands more than you can give, when you try to be strong for everyone and end up breaking inside, I see, I understand. In that boat there was physical fatigue, but also emotional exhaustion. Maybe they didn't say it out loud, but they carried a deep sense of vulnerability. Darkness intensifies doubts. And it's interesting, because the night in your life often does the same. When the house is silent, when the lights go out, when your mind starts recalling everything that went wrong, everything that is missing, everything you fear, it feels like the storm becomes bigger.
But while all of this was happening, I kept praying. Prayer wasn't just words to the Father, it was my heart leaning over each one of them. With every gust of wind, I prayed for more strength. With every wave hitting the boat, I prayed for more courage. And today, when you feel close to giving up, know that I intercede for you too. Not just for what you do, but for who you are to me. After hours of rowing, fear began to take over them. When the body is tired, fear finds easier openings. And maybe that's where you are right now. Tired of waiting, tired of trying, tired of explaining, tired of believing things can improve. But listen, the night is never eternal, and I never stop walking in your direction. It was then that I made a decision. The storm would not be calmed from afar. I would not remain a passive observer. Love moved me. I stood up and began walking toward them. Not through the obvious path, not through what human logic would expect, but on the very waters that frightened them. And that's what I still do today. Sometimes I don't calm the storm immediately, because first I want to teach you that even in the midst of chaos, I can walk toward you. What is impossible for you is ground beneath my feet. As I walked, the wind remained strong, but it didn't affect me. The waves rose, but they didn't stop me. And each step on the sea carried a message. I am coming to you, even when everything tries to convince you otherwise. Today I want you to remember this. No matter how strong the wind blowing over your life is, I keep moving in your direction. You may not see me yet, but I am already on the way. Before ending this part, I want to ask something simple. Take a moment today to write, on paper or even in your phone's notes, what the contrary winds in your heart are. Naming your fears doesn't make them bigger. It simply places them before me with more clarity. Then place your hand over those words and say, Jesus, I know you see my boat. And I do see it. I always did. I always will. Son, daughter, let us walk together through that night. I was walking on the waters. The wind was strong, the waves turbulent, and my disciples were still fighting to keep the boat steady. I knew they were tired. I knew their minds were confused, mixing faith and fear, hope and despair. And that is exactly the state in which the human heart often finds itself when life tightens.
As I drew near, the sea seemed to swallow the boat at times, making it hard for them to see clearly. They looked in all directions, trying to detect any possible danger, trying to figure out whether they would survive the crossing. And then they saw me, but they did not recognize me. Their minds, overwhelmed by fear, interpreted my presence as a threat. They thought I was a ghost. They screamed. That scream was not just fear. It was the scream of someone already at their emotional limit. Maybe you know that kind of scream. Not necessarily external, but the one that gets trapped inside you when anxiety tightens, when fear rises, when everything feels uncertain. It's important that you understand something. I went to them to bring peace, but the way I appeared was so unexpected, so outside the bounds of logic that they became afraid. And this still happens today. Many times when I begin to act in your life in a way that doesn't match your expectations, you also feel confused. You expect solutions to arrive through familiar paths, common doors, quick answers. But son, daughter, I am not limited to the possibilities you can see. When a door closes, you think it's abandonment. When a change comes, you think you've lost everything. When someone walks away, you assume it's your fault. But in many of those moments, I am simply appearing in a different way, and the change you thought was a ghost is actually salvation arriving. My disciples saw me but didn't recognize me. They were so focused on their fear that they couldn't see love coming their way. And the same happens to you. When the heart is full of worry, your spiritual vision becomes blurry. Intense emotions distort what is real. Anxiety amplifies sad scenarios. Guilt convinces you of lies, and suffering makes you think I am far away, when in reality, I am closer than ever. Son, daughter, remember this. The storm does not change my identity. Even when you cannot recognize me in the midst of the waves, I remain who I am, the one who calms winds, the one who lifts the fallen, the one who hears what you cannot even express. When my disciples screamed in fear, I did not get offended. I did not step back. I did not judge them. Instead, I spoke immediately. Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. Those words pierced through the wind. They cut through the noise of the waves and reached their hearts. And they reach yours now too. It is I. Not the ghost of your worst thoughts. Not a distant figure you imagine on your hardest days. Not a voice of accusation. It is I. The one who knows you completely and loves you deeply. The wind continues to blow in many areas of your life. Financial pressure, social expectations, internal demands, comparisons with others, thoughts of inadequacy. All of that blows against you like a storm. But even amid this chaos, my voice remains the same. It is I. Do you know why I said, take courage? Because fear paralyzes. It blocks your vision, distances you from hope, makes you believe nothing will change. But courage, even small courage, opens space for faith to breathe again. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision not to let fear be the captain of your boat. Today I want you to think about how many times you misunderstood my presence because your heart was tired. How many times you thought I was far when, in reality, you were the one hiding behind your worries. How many times you felt punished, when what was truly happening was that I was preparing you for something greater. Son, daughter, I do not show up to scare you. I show up to free you. Now let me ask you something simple, something that can bring relief to your soul. When anxiety arrives and you cannot tell whether it is fear or direction, close your eyes and say, Jesus, if it's you, speak to my heart. That phrase creates space for my voice to calm your inner world. Take that small step. It is enough. I am here, walking on the waters toward your boat, even when you confuse me with fear. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Let's return to the moment when the night gained a different glow, not because of the stars, but because of the faith being born in the heart of one of my disciples. After I said, take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid. Something unexpected happened. Peter, always impulsive, always intense, took a step no one could have imagined. He looked at me through the darkness, trying to understand whether it was truly me. The wind was still blowing, the waves still hitting the boat, and no previous miracle could fully prepare his heart for what was about to happen. Then he said, "Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the waters." When I heard those words, my heart rejoiced, not because Peter wanted to prove something to himself or others, but because even in fear, he wanted to come closer to me. And that is something I still see in my children today. A heart that trembles, yet longs to draw near.
I smiled inside. It was like seeing a tiny flame trying to light in the midst of the wind. I knew his limitations, his doubts, his impulsiveness, but I also knew the sincerity of his love. So I said only one word: "Come, son, daughter." You can't imagine the power of that word. When I say come, it is not a call for you to prove perfection, nor to show unshakable faith. It is an invitation to meet me in the midst of chaos. A call to take a step you yourself may not believe you're capable of taking. Peter took a deep breath, held onto the edge of the boat, and stepped out. The boat swayed. The water was cold. The wind hit his face. The other disciples watched in silence, some doubting, some encouraging, some afraid. Moments feel longer when lived with an accelerated heart, and the same happens when you're about to do something new. The mind creates scenarios, the body hesitates, fear speaks loudly. But Peter placed his second foot outside the boat, and for the first time in his life, he felt something he would never forget: the impossible holding his steps. He began to walk. There was no logical explanation for it. The sea that threatened to swallow the boat became a path beneath his feet, but only because he walked with his eyes fixed on me. Son, daughter, have you noticed that your boldest steps happen when you stop looking at fear and start looking at me? It may be an apology you've avoided for years. It may be the courage to close a cycle that no longer does you good. It may be the decision to seek emotional help even when you think, "I should be able to do this alone." It may be the start of a new project, a change, a new beginning. Each of these steps is Peter stepping out of the boat. I keep calling you. Sometimes my come is gentle, a peace in your heart. Other times it is firm, an uneasiness pushing you away from what destroys you. But it is always love. Still, I want you to understand a deep truth. The first step does not eliminate the wind. Peter walked, but the wind kept blowing. You will also feel resistance even when you're on the right path. The presence of wind doesn't mean the absence of my will. It simply means that the sea of life is real, and walking in faith does not eliminate difficulties. It changes how you respond to them. As Peter walked, I saw every detail: the surprise in his eyes, the mix of fear and courage, his quick breathing trying to keep up with the miracle beneath his feet. I also see that in you when, even with fear, you decide to do what is right, when you choose kindness in a hostile environment, when you decide to forgive, when you pursue a more honest life with yourself and others. There are moments in life when you will feel the impossible happening: strength you don't know the source of, unexpected clarity, peace that doesn't match the situation, a door opening no one imagined. These are steps on the waters, and I celebrate each one with you. Now let me ask you something simple. Think of one step of faith you've been postponing. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to be real. Identify it. Then whisper to my heart, "Jesus, if it's you, call me." You will be surprised by the answer. Son, daughter, I am here, looking at you with the same love with which I looked at Peter that night. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Now I want to bring you to the moment when the sea, once a stage of fear, became the stage of something glorious. Peter's first steps on the waters. Imagine it with me slowly, because each detail carries profound meaning, not only for that night, but for your life today. Peter walked. Yes, he truly walked. His feet touched the impossible, and the impossible did not give way. Even though the wind continued blowing and the waves continued rising, there was a space between us where fear did not rule. As long as he looked at me, every step was firm, and I rejoiced. My heart filled with tenderness because seeing a child take steps of faith, even small, even trembling, always brings me joy. Son, daughter, believe this. Every time you try to do good, every time you fight to forgive, every time you rise after falling, every time you choose honesty when no one is watching, every time you seek peace instead of conflict, I rejoice with you. Even if you think it's little, I see it as courage. But as Peter walked, something changed inside him. It wasn't the wind. It had been strong since the beginning. It wasn't the waves. They were still moving. What changed was his focus. Peter stopped looking at me and began looking at the wind. He noticed the size of the storm around him, and when his mind filled with everything surrounding him, his heart emptied of the faith that sustained him. For a moment, he forgot I was standing right in front of him. For a moment, he believed more in the strength of the wind than in my presence. And then he began to sink. Son, daughter, you know that moment too. That feeling of finally advancing, finally understanding something, finally overcoming a fear, until a thought, a criticism, a painful memory, an old mistake, or a silent insecurity pulls you down again. The heart begins to sink before the body. The mind panics. The soul grows tired. And you feel as fragile as Peter did then. Peter sank quickly. But in the instant he realized what was happening, he did the most important thing he could do. He cried out, "Lord, save me." It wasn't a beautiful speech. It wasn't a long prayer. It wasn't fancy words. It was the cry of someone who knew that alone he wouldn't make it back to the surface. And son, daughter, that is the kind of cry I most love to hear. Sincere, real, without masks. You don't need to pray beautifully for me to hear you. You don't need to show strength when you are sinking. You don't need to pretend you're fine when you're broken inside. The most powerful prayer is often the simplest. Jesus, help me. Jesus, I'm sinking. Jesus, I can't do this alone. I hear them all. When Peter cried out, I didn't delay. I didn't wait for him to sink further. I didn't let him feel the depth of the sea on his own. My hand reached out immediately. I grabbed him. I lifted him. I saved him. And as I pulled him from the water, my heart felt pain too. Not because he failed, but because I knew how deeply fear can wound a heart that is trying to believe. My words, "You of little faith," were not a reprimand. They were an invitation. An invitation for him to understand that he didn't need to doubt so much. An invitation to grow. An invitation to trust more deeply next time. And he did grow. He fell again in other moments, but he also rose, matured, and became strong. Son, daughter, listen with tenderness. Failing does not disqualify you. Feeling fear does not make you unworthy. Wavering does not make you less loved. I extend my hand to you as quickly as I did for Peter. The water that pulls you down is not stronger than my love. The wind that confuses you is not louder than my voice. The guilt trying to sink you is not heavier than my grace. Now let me ask you something simple, yet profound. Identify today the wave that makes you sink. It could be a memory, an insecurity, a comparison, a habit you've tried to break for years, a specific fear. Name it in your heart. Naming what drags you down does not weaken you. It makes you aware of what you need to give me. Then speak to my heart sincerely. Jesus, save me in this, and allow me to enter that space with my extended hand. I am here. I always was. I always will be. Even when you sink, I remain beside you, ready to lift you as many times as needed. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Let us keep walking together because there is still something deep from that night that I want to reveal to your heart. After I took Peter's hand and lifted him from the waters, we walked together back to the boat. He was soaked, frightened, trying to understand everything he had just experienced. There was courage and shame mixed within him, strength and fragility side by side. And still, I loved him completely. When we entered the boat, something happened instantly. The wind stopped. The storm simply ceased. The waves that moments earlier threatened to swallow the boat calmed as if obeying a silent command. There was a moment of stillness so deep that everyone remained motionless, trying to process what had just happened. Son's daughter, there is a silence that only comes after certain storms. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. The silence that comes when chaos withdraws, and, for the first time in a long while, you can breathe without the weight of fear. That silence is not just external, it is internal. The heart slows down, the mind quiets, worries lose their force, and you finally perceive that I was there the whole time. The disciples looked at me with wide eyes. What they had witnessed went beyond any human comprehension. It wasn't only the miracle of walking on the waters. It wasn't only Peter's rescue. It was the revelation of who I truly was to them. And in that moment, they said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Those words were not born out of fear. They were born out of understanding, out of experience. And I want to tell you something gently. There are revelations about me that happen only after a storm. In calm waters, you learn about my love. But in the midst of wind, at the limit of your strength, you discover how deeply that love sustains you. In the boat, each disciple carried something within the heart. Some felt relief. Others still trembled. Some cried quietly. Each processed the night in a different way, just as you process your own storms. Some days you understand. Other days you just feel. And other days, you simply survive. And all of that is human, and I understand it deeply. As the boat remained still, I looked at Peter. At first he avoided my gaze, likely thinking, I failed, I sank, I screamed, I showed my weakness. But when his eyes finally met mine, I wanted him to understand this. I was not disappointed in him. He had failed, yes. But he had also walked. He had sunk, yes. But he had also been rescued. He had doubted, yes. But he had also trusted enough to step out of the boat. Son, daughter, this is something I want you to understand today. Your journey is not measured only by the moments you sink, but also by the moments you dare to step out of the boat. What you have lived until now does not define you by your weakest point, but by the whole picture. The attempts, the learning, the falls, the beginnings again. In the silence of that night, many of them thought about their limitations. And maybe that is what happens to you when the storm passes. Instead of celebrating what you overcame, you get stuck in what you didn't do, in what you did wrong, in what could have been better. But I tell you, instead of punishing yourself, allow yourself to see how much you have grown. Calm brings clarity, and it is precisely in that clarity that I begin to speak to the heart. Son, you didn't walk perfectly, but you walked. Daughter, you didn't conquer everything, but you didn't give up. I saw your courage. I saw your effort. I saw your truth. After the wind stopped, a different kind of worship rose in the boat. It wasn't worship born from emotion, but from recognition. It wasn't just joy, it was surrender. My disciples expressed something far deeper than words. They trusted me more. And that is what I want for you. A trust that grows slowly but grows, a faith that sometimes wavers but matures, a love strengthened not despite the storms but through them. Now let me ask you something for today. Reserve a few moments in silence. Not to think about your problems, but to breathe deeply and give thanks for 3 storms you've already come through. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not as you imagined, but you overcame. You are here. And I am here too, as I always have been. Son, daughter, if what you have received here has strengthened your heart, you may leave a comment sharing what spoke to you the most so far. Many others can be comforted through your experience. My love goes farther when you allow it to flow through you. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Now I want us to walk through an even deeper stretch of that night. The storm had ceased, the sea was calm, but my disciples' hearts were still restless. Outer calm doesn't always mean inner calm, and I knew that. I knew that inside each one there were questions, fears, quick conclusions, hopes and doubts all mixed together, as if the storm had left behind traces that only silence could reveal. Peter especially carried a weight I know well, and that you know too. The weight of having tried, but not having succeeded until the end. The weight of having dared, but not having stayed firm. The weight of having believed for a few moments, and then felt fear take over. That weight is called self-judgment, and it is far more cruel than any wave in the sea. Peter didn't need to say anything. I saw his look. A mix of shame and pride, remorse and wonder, desire to be strong and awareness of his own fragility. He likely thought, why did I doubt? Why did I let fear in? Why couldn't I walk all the way? Did Jesus get disappointed in me? Son, daughter, how many times do you ask yourself these same questions? How many times do you believe your failure cancels your effort? How many times do you think your wavering invalidates your love for me? How many times do you imagine that I expected perfection when all I wanted was sincerity? As everyone sat in the boat, I observed each of them in silence. Not the silence of distance, but the silence of care. The silence of someone who gives space for the soul to breathe after facing something great. The silence of someone who allows the heart to slowly understand what the mind cannot process quickly. Some disciples were amazed by the miracle. Others tried to understand how the sea had calmed so suddenly, but something deeper was happening. They were beginning to perceive that I was not only a teacher, not only a prophet, not only a leader. I was the Son of God. And that revelation did not come through study, explanation, argument, or formal demonstration. It came through experience. It came through fear, struggle, crying out, and salvation. It is the same with you. The experiences that draw you closest to me are not the comfortable ones. They are the ones that strip away your masks, reveal your limits, expose your need for help, remind you that you are not in control, and that not being in control is not failure, but humanity. Son, daughter, listen closely. Wavering faith is still faith. Trembling courage is still courage. Small hope is still hope. What matters is not the size of what you feel, but the direction you look when fear tries to pull you down. Peter sank, yes, but he sank calling my name, and that says much about his heart and about yours too. To others, Peter failed because he sank. To my eyes, Peter conquered because he walked. He dared, he trusted, he moved, and when he fell into my arms. Today I want to help you see your own falls with more truth and less guilt. Sometimes you fall because you're trying to carry a burden that was never yours. Sometimes you fall because fear speaks louder than faith. Sometimes you fall because you think you must prove something to others or to yourself. But listen, I don't use your falls to judge you. I use your falls to teach you to be freer. And do you know what is even more beautiful? After that night, Peter remained by my side. He stumbled again, had moments of weakness, impulsiveness, doubt. But he also had moments of surrender, courage, revelation, and growth. He was not defined by the fall, but by the hand that lifted him. This is what I want for you, that you don't define yourself by your weakest moment, but by my love that sustains you. That you don't see yourself as incapable because you stumble, but as someone loved who keeps learning. That you don't let the voice of guilt speak louder than my voice saying, I am here. Let me ask you for a gesture of kindness toward yourself today. Choose one area where you feel you failed or fell back, and instead of accusing yourself, say to my heart, Jesus, walk with me here again. I will walk, and walking beside you is my joy. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Now I want us to reach a deep understanding. That sea, that storm, that boat do not belong only to the past. They still exist today, but in different forms. The seas of your generation are not just outside. They rise inside the heart and mind. The waves that frighten you are often made not of water, but of anxiety, comparison, self-pressure, loneliness, and the constant demands modern life places on you every day. My disciples faced physical winds that night. You face internal winds, and some blow so hard that they make you doubt even your ability to keep going. See this tenderly. There is no weakness in admitting that you are tired. There is no shame in recognizing that your mind has been fighting silent storms. Today, many live surrounded by unrealistic expectations. On social media, everyone seems perfect, happy, productive, strong, successful, aligned. And when you compare yourself to that, you may feel that you're always behind, always below, always incomplete. This constant comparison is a storm as dangerous as the one that shook my disciples' boat. Son, daughter, I want you to understand that most storms you face today begin as thoughts. Thoughts that tell you you're not enough. Thoughts that convince you you've lost too much time. Thoughts that make you feel unseen. Thoughts that shame you for mistakes already forgiven. Each of these thoughts is like a wave hitting the boat of your soul. But do you remember what happened that night? It wasn't the sea that determined the victory. It was my step upon the sea. And today I still walk on the surface of everything that afflicts you. What generates anxiety for you does not threaten me. What confuses you does not hinder me. What paralyzes you does not limit me. I remain above the waters, even the dark waters of comparison, anxiety, and fear of the future. When Peter walked on the waters, he could only do so because he was looking at me. When he looked away, he sank. This is not condemnation. It is a reminder of love, because I know how easy it is to lose focus when the world is shouting so loudly. I know how easy it is to believe lies when you are tired. I know how easy it is to sink when you try to be strong for too long. That is why today I want you to learn to walk on another kind of water. The water of others' opinions, the water of unrealistic expectations, the water of the constant need to please, the water of the fear of not being enough, the water of pressure for productivity, the water of fear of tomorrow. You do not need to fight all of that alone. That sea is not conquered by arm strength, it is conquered by your eyes fixed on my love. When the world tells you you are not, I tell you you are mine. When the world pressures you to always be more, I tell you my grace sustains you. When the world compares you, I tell you I see you whole. When the world says strive to be perfect, I tell you I receive you even with your imperfections. I want to help you choose lighter steps, steps that bring you closer to me. And walking on the waters today can take very simple forms like turning off your phone for a few minutes to breathe and reconnect, unfollowing accounts that harm you or feed insecurity, refusing to absorb destructive criticism as absolute truth, sending a sincere message of care to someone who's suffering, refusing to participate in conversations that spread hate or gossip, setting aside a moment each day to express gratitude instead of comparison. These are small decisions that change far more than you imagine. They are steps on the waters, steps where the impossible becomes a path because you choose to walk looking at me. And son, daughter, remember something essential. You are not what others say about you, nor even what your mind says on hard days. You are what I say, loved, valued, precious in my eyes. When I look at you, I don't see failure. I see potential, sincerity, struggle, desire to grow, a heart that keeps trying, even tired. Before ending this part, I want you to do something simple today. Choose one attitude that, for you, symbolizes walking on the waters amid your inner sea. Something small but real, something only you and I will know. Take that step. I will walk with you. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Now I want to bring you to an extremely human moment of that night, a moment deeply present in many hearts today, the moment when exhaustion feels greater than strength. Before I arrived walking on the waters, my disciples had already been rowing for hours. They tried, and the boat moved very little. The contrary wind was so strong that each stroke of the oar felt useless, and that is exactly how many hearts live today. You know that feeling. Putting effort into something, a relationship, a dream, studies, work, an attempt to change something inside yourself, and noticing the results are slow, almost invisible. Sometimes you do everything right, and still the wind insists on blowing against you. Son, daughter, I saw my disciples rowing that night, and I see you too. I see you trying to be strong for your family. I see you fighting thoughts no one imagines you have. I see you holding back tears so as not to worry those you love. I see you doing your best with the little you have. I see your hidden battles, the ones fought inside you, the ones that drain far more than any physical effort. The truth is, there is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. Emotional exhaustion. The one born from accumulated worries, frustrated expectations, internal demands, fear of the future, a relentless sense of inadequacy. And I know there are moments when you look at yourself and think, I can't keep rowing anymore. It was at a moment exactly like that, when I decided to walk toward them. Not when they were strong, confident, or optimistic. Not when they appeared victorious. But when they were exhausted, vulnerable, nearly ready to give up. And I want you to understand this deeply. I don't come only when you are well. I come especially when you are tired. Faith does not demand that you always be at your best. It does not demand constant smiles. It does not demand that you hide your weaknesses. Faith actually awakens when you admit that you cannot go on alone. The sea that night wasn't the trigger for the miracle. It was the stage for vulnerability. And it is on the stage of your vulnerability that I perform the deepest transformations within you. Sometimes you ask, Jesus, why doesn't the wind stop already? But there is something important. I don't always calm the storm right away, because sometimes I first want to calm the storm inside you. And that storm is deeper, more invisible, more persistent. While you row exhausted, I work in areas of your soul you don't even notice. Healing old fears, strengthening your roots, refining your sensitivity, adjusting your path. Son, daughter, you don't need to be strong all the time. The strength I ask of you is not the strength the world demands. The world wants constant productivity, perfect image, flawless performance. I want sincerity. I want truth. I want you to tell me when you're tired. I want you to let me enter your boat before you collapse, and when I enter, something always changes. The wind may not stop right away, but the heart changes rhythm. Fear loses ground. Hope finds space. The soul breathes again. Do you know one of the great secrets of that night? They didn't need to reach the other side alone. They only thought they had to. And you think the same often. You believe everything is your responsibility. Carrying, solving, repairing, organizing, holding, enduring. But I never asked you to do alone what was designed for us to walk through together. Today I want to ask you to do something. Take a conscious pause. Spend a few minutes breathing deeply, placing your hand over your chest and softly saying, Jesus, I'm tired, but I want to row with you. That is not a declaration of weakness. It is a declaration of humility and trust. And when you allow yourself to be honest in that way, my grace enters your heart like a fresh wind. Let me also suggest something simple for you to do today. Choose a small but real act of love. It may be helping someone, sending a sincere message, apologizing, forgiving, hugging someone, or even allowing yourself to rest without guilt. These gestures create space for my presence to renew your strength. And son, daughter, if this message has brought peace to your heart, you may like and share it, so more people may also find comfort and hope. Every life reached matters deeply to me, and you can help reach someone who is exactly in the place of exhaustion where I stepped into the boat that night. Son, daughter, may peace be with you. Now let us arrive together at the closing of that journey, not as someone who finishes a distant story, but as someone who understands that what happened that night still resonates in your heart today. When I walked on the waters, was not only an extraordinary miracle, it was a profound revelation of who I am and who you become when you walk by my side. After the wind stopped and the boat moved smoothly forward, a spirit of reverence filled my disciples. They weren't celebrating because everything was suddenly easy. They were celebrating because they had discovered something they would never forget. Even in the midst of the impossible, my presence changes everything. Son, daughter, all the lessons of that night exist for you as well. Taking brave steps even when insecure. You don't need to wait until you feel completely ready to do what is right or necessary. Just as Peter stepped out of the boat trembling, you too can take small steps that feel too big. Many of the deepest changes in your life begin with small, almost invisible but honest gestures. Not allowing fear to decide your path. Fear may shout loudly, but it does not need to be the captain of your boat. It tries to convince you that it's safer not to try, not to feel, not to trust, not to love, not to start again. But I tell you with love, fear is a terrible counselor. It takes away your vision, distorts your thoughts, and keeps you stuck in shallow waters when I have already called you to deep ones. Asking for help when you're sinking. Peter didn't sink because he was weak. He sank because he was human. And so is your heart. I don't expect perfection from you. I expect sincerity. The shortest, simplest cries, "Lord, save me," are the ones that most quickly find my hand. Understanding that failing does not disqualify you. If failure disqualified, Peter would never have become a pillar among my disciples. If falling made someone unworthy, I would never have lifted so many throughout my ministry. Your falls do not erase my purpose. Your wavering does not cancel my love. I continue my work in you even on the days you see no progress. When we reached the end of that crossing, my disciples were different. Not because they had become perfect, but because they had become aware of my love, my authority, my compassion, and aware of their need to walk close to me. And that is the awareness I want to blossom within you. Son, daughter, you face seas I know deeply, seas of anxiety, difficult decisions, doubt about the future, social pressure, relationships that demand more than you imagined, wounds that still hurt, thoughts you don't know how to silence. I see all of it, and I want you to know, you are not sailing alone. Just as I did that night, I walk toward your boat every day. I walk on what scares you. I walk on what tries to drown you. I walk on what paralyzes you. And I enter, whenever you invite me, bringing peace where there was once a storm. I want to ask you something gently. Allow yourself to rest a little more in me. Allow yourself to believe that I am working behind the scenes in your life, even when you don't see it. Pause for a few moments today and breathe deeply, saying in your heart, "Jesus, walk with me over the waters I cannot cross alone. I will walk, and I will keep walking." And before you feel this is a farewell, let me remind you, the journey does not end here. Just as that crossing ended but their path continued, your path continues too. There is more to live, more to learn, more to experience, more to grow. And I want to be by your side in every step. If you want to stay close, listening to my voice and allowing me to speak to your heart in the next topics, you may subscribe to follow the next episodes. It's not about numbers. It's about closeness. It's about walking together, part by part, word by word, step by step, until your faith becomes maturity and your maturity becomes peace. Son, daughter, always remember, Jesus, I am here. Do not be afraid. Love is the way. I walk with you, in the boat, on the sea, and in every sunrise of your life.